£1,000 for big business is pocket change. It's money that's fallen behind the sofa, and for that measly amount of money, they get to go and lobby and talk to the leaders of our country to make sure that their corporations avoid billions of pounds in taxes that should be levied to transform our society for the better. This is not charity, this is a business decision. And the business decision is that we buy a football ticket, we get access to Keir Starmer, we get his ear. We get access that no ordinary people have. And it's not just Keir Starmer. There are so many members of the shadow cabinet who are taking huge donations from corporations or from individuals with interest in private healthcare and the city. Most people in the UK do not want a privatised National Health Service. This is why it's so disturbing that Wes Streeting, the Shadow Minister for Health, has accepted £175,000 in donations from individuals and companies that are connected to the private healthcare sector. This includes taking money from a man by the name of John Armitage, who runs a recruitment company that recruits staff into private healthcare and also recruits staff into the NHS. This raises serious conflict of interest questions. Is Wes Streeting going to allow the NHS to be privatised or bring in private companies to provide services on the NHS after he's accepted this sort of money from people with interest in private healthcare? Now let's consider Jonathan Reynolds, the Shadow Business Secretary. Jonathan Reynolds accepted a gratuity worth £3,000 for him and his partner and a member of Keir Starmer's office to attend Glastonbury. Those tickets were paid for by YouTube, which is owned by Google. Not long after, the Labour Party announced that it had dropped a policy to introduce a 10% digital services tax on Google. Now, I'm not saying that the Labour Party dropped its tax on Google because Jonathan Reynolds accepted those tickets, but we have to ask the question, has the Labour Party been co-opted by that sort of gratuity? One of the most concerning things about Keir Starmer's Labour Party is the revolving door between corporate lobbying firms and the party itself. As of the end of 2023, the Labour Party had selected 20 MP candidates who are either current or former corporate lobbyists. There is almost no distinction at times between the Labour Party and a corporate lobbying sector that represents some of the worst industries, some of the most rapacious industries in the world, from arms companies to tobacco companies. Let me give you an example of how this has played out in the Labour Party. You may have been watching how the Labour Party in the last couple of weeks has excluded socialists and people of colour at the last minute through a dodgy selection process. One of those victims is a man by the name of Lloyd Russell Moyles, an incredibly popular candidate for the Labour Party in Brighton, who's done incredible work in trying to actually control and constrain the worst aspects of the arms industry while in Parliament. At the very last minute, without any warning, he was kicked off the selection list, deselected, no longer allowed to stand for the Labour Party. In his place is a man parachuted in by the name of Chris Ward. Now, what qualifies Chris Ward to be the effectively unselected candidate for Brighton and Kemp Town? Well, for one thing, he's worked for Keir Starmer for the last 10 years. But after those 10 years, he went directly from Keir Starmer's office to work for Hanbury Strategies, a lobbying firm that represents corporate clients. This shows the extent to which there's a revolving door between the Labour Party under Keir Starmer and the corporate lobbying industry. If you follow largely the mainstream media, you probably wouldn't have heard these stories about how Keir Starmer has been taking £43,000 in gratuities from billionaires and from corporations, even though they're clearly of public interest. And we have to ask the question, why? Why is that the case? One of the reasons is because there's no real distance between the political class and the media class. There's quite often literally a revolving door between the media and political parties. But often, the media realizes that they need access to politicians. They need to be part of WhatsApp groups. They need to get scoops. So they refuse to criticize and hold to account politicians who can withdraw that access. There are real concerns about conflicts of interest in the Labour Party, about the acceptance of corporate gratuities. Because even if people say there's no way that Keir Starmer or the Labour Party is going to change policies just for the price of a football ticket, the question always remains, why accept them then? Why are they being given? What sort of influence do they buy? The truth is that corporate gratuities are a slippery slope.